You're listening to Lime, Healthy Living with a Twist. The following podcast is an excerpt from Lime's 24/7 talk radio channel, available on Sirius Satellite Radio 114.
We're back with the Fitness Guru, coming to you live on Lime, Healthy Living with a Twist, Sirius Channel 114, broadcasting live from the Fitness Guru Lab in Brooklyn, New York. I'm Michael Fagan.
And I'm Lawson Harris.
And we are talking baseball, and we're talking baseball with Tony Abbatine, who is coming to us live from the baseball diamond of Fordham University. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Lawson, you want to start with the first question, because I think it's first and foremost.
Well, I was just confused because I'd never heard of frozen ropes, and I thought, oh, it's a boxing thing. Cool, we're doing boxing today. Great. And then he starts reading about how it's baseball, and I thought, well, what does frozen ropes have to do with baseball? So I'm sure that you can enlighten me.
Well, certainly for the baseball purists in the audience, a frozen rope, the term came from maybe 40, 50 years ago when Joe DiMaggio was hitting line drives at Yankee Stadium. A very famous broadcaster named Mel Allen back in the Yankee glory days would say, there goes another line drive or frozen rope hit out into the outfield. Fast forward to 2007, a frozen rope is a ball that's hit really hard or a ball that's hit or thrown on a straight line. It's the ultimate in hitting and pitching.
I get it. Well, that makes all the sense in the world.
And they get to hit balls for half an hour. You guys have created a pretty serious training program and instructional model, right?
Well, we have, Michael. Certainly the general public can come in and hit in our hitting tunnels, but our business model has been premised upon instruction, and really instruction in three different levels. The mechanical part of teaching the great game of baseball and softball, the mental part of the game, and really the conditioning part of the game, which has become probably the most important part of what we do with the young children and the young adults now.
When you say conditioning, you mean, training them to be better athletes?
Well, better athletes, correct. Most of the young little leaguers that we see, after we've given them some good technical information, what we're finding out is the reason why that they can't swing the bat or throw overhand or run to second base in a competitive time has nothing to do with their instruction or mechanics, but it's a function of some cardiovascular issues, or in many situations, being overweight even at 10 or 11 years old.
You checked out a little bit there, and so when you're working with them cardiovascularly, you're doing strength training, and you're working on muscles that are going to help support the sport of baseball, correct?
That is correct. And when you think about throwing a baseball or a softball, upper body strength, certainly being strong in the torso area, those are parts of the body in particular that we address with the young players. How
do you deal with all those nasty shoulder injuries? It is such a complicated joint. You're talking about, like you said, upper body strength and throwing. How do you keep those little rotator cuffs strong?
Well, one of the I guess the luxuries that we have from a baseball standpoint, Rick Peterson, who's the pitching coach for the New York Mets, who's our international pitching director, with the help of some high-end cameras and some of the best orthopedic surgeons in the country, we've put together not only a throwing program, but many times when a young player is hurt or complains about bicep tendonitis or the beginnings of some rotator cuff issues, it's a function of improper throwing skills. Many times it's not fatigue, it's just simply the way in which they're using their legs in conjunction with their lower half.
All right, so it's a technique issue. Where was it? Go ahead.
So it's a relative, you guys have been around for a while. It's a pretty intense methodology that you guys have developed in order to get these points across. Again, we're not simply saying to the little tykes, throw faster, but we're taking apart their pitching mechanics and trying to put it back together in a way that's healthy and more efficient.
Well, Michael, you're right. At the young level, it's not about teaching pitching. It's about really teaching pure throwing skills. The greatest gift that we can give to a 9-year-old, and more importantly, the Little League dads that we see across the country, is to show them the proper way to teach throwing. All the young kids want to get on the mound and start throwing hard and being a pitcher. That's when typically most of the throwing injuries occur. The approach we've taken is that if we can actually improve throwing skills and spend more time on teaching throwing, by the time they're standing on the mound or on the hill, they'll improve and their injury will be down.
So, Tony, let me ask you a question about young hopefuls. I know in many sports, especially boxing, which is my specialty, there's a certain amount of talent required, and the rest of it is pure heart. What would you say the ratio of pure talent to heart would be in fashioning a professional baseball player?
Oh, boy, that's a great question.
It's a loaded question. I'm sorry, but I got to ask.
The Major League Draft every year, there's literally hundreds of players that are given the opportunity to live a dream. And from a physical standpoint, they're very comparable. What separates the boys that get a chance to live the dream world and play at the major league level is typically that passion, the dedication, and the effort level. I think that probably, as they get older, it's probably more than 50% of the reason why some make it and some don't. At the youth level, I hate to say it, but mom and dad and genetics have a lot to do with it also. If you're going to throw 95 miles an hour one day, a lot of it has to do with grandpa and mom and dad and just how big and strong you can be, which is a function not so much of passion and effort, but just simply of having good genes.
You have an incredible eye. You've been in the business for over 17 years. What is the youngest age that you've seen a player and gone, that kid's got it going on, and that child has grown up and turned into a Major League Baseball player? What's the youngest child you've ever been able to spot?
Typically at the age of 12, and the one thing that we've been able to do, whether you're 3 or 15 years old, you're evaluated the first time you walk into one of our training centers across the country in Canada. So we have a baseline. We know what above average is, believe it or not, for a 4-year-old to throw a ball extremely hard, or what is above average for a 7-year-old in a standing broad jump, which we know is an indication of sprint and good running speed. So we can start, usually at the age of 10 or 11 is when we can start making some predictions that if they stay healthy and continue to grow, that this young person has a chance to be an outstanding high school player. After that, it's really luck of the draw who goes on from there. But at that 10 or 11-year-old level is when the beginning of a prospect usually starts.
It's exciting. How do you handle the psychological ramifications of a kid who really, really wants it bad, but technically and from a scientific standpoint, just doesn't have the goods? Do you guys have any, a baseline in place to just try to bring them down gently and make sure they understand that the game is fun and it's a sport and it's about the sport as opposed to winning and being the best and getting into baseball as a profession?
I think most of the players that come into our training centers fit that profile. I think with some of the national media attention that Frozen Ropes has gotten because of our work with major league teams and Mariano Rivera and Manny Ramirez, most of our success stories are the 7-year-old who won't even make his high school team, but the fact that for the first time he puts the ball in play, or a young pitcher who's never thrown more than 2 strikeouts in a game. It really comes down to how much can we motivate and provide enough good information so that youngster is participating. And really, in this country, and especially baseball, and the challenge that we have losing so many good players to other sports, if we can get them to continue and just simply participate, mission accomplished, another success story.
So again, in the same breath, you're not just hosting a laboratory to build players, but you're also, teaching a certain, enjoyment of the game, a love of the sport.
That's true, Michael. And, I mentioned before about the 3-prong level of instruction. We talked about the mechanical part and certainly the conditioning part. Our mental skills training program, what we call our showtime training. When it's time to go out and perform, it's showtime. And believe it or not, some of the relaxation techniques that we're trying to show 9 and 10-year-olds, the importance of breathing, understanding the power of self-talk, knowing how powerful visualization is. These are the things that we're hoping when their baseball days are over that we've hopefully improved some pretty good life skills for them.
That sounds outrageous. Now, I'm a parent, and I hope a lot of parents heard what you just said about teaching kids how to relax, teaching kids how to focus, teaching kids how to breathe. Because like you said, that's going to help them in their sport. That's going to help them taking a test. That's going to help them in their after-school job. It's lovely and refreshing to hear somebody like you who's in charge of so many young bodies and so many young minds, have such a lovely and well-rounded view of how to deal with children.
I think one of the nicest compliments, and it's typically the moms because they're always nicer than the dads when they come in, generally speaking. I hate to say that. When you hear that we've actually improved, test scores because little Johnny's concentration levels have gotten better, or their tone of voice and their body language is better with their siblings, because of some of these Showtime training tools that we presented them at our locations. That's the fun part, knowing that 99% of the children that we see are not going to make a living playing this sport, but we're just simply part of the culture and just getting them through to the next level, and with all the pressures that they have,
Tony, they're about to run us out. Give us
Is
quickly.
that right?
Yeah, the website. What's the website people can check out?
FrozenRopes.com. We're in locations all across the U.S., but that's our national website.
Thank you. Tony Abbatine from Frozen Ropes. Check it out, FrozenRopes.com.
Thanks for listening to Lime. Lime Radio is available 24/7 on Sirius Satellite Radio 114. Go to Sirius.com to become a subscriber.